Coming up on this edition of Second Alarm, we'll take a look at how the Spokane Fire Department responded to the November 17th windstorm. Plus, we will learn how the department is increasing its hazmat response capabilities. These stories and much more coming up on this edition of Second Alarm. Hello and welcome to this edition of Second Alarm. I'm Assistant Chief Brian Schaefer. On November 17, 2015, the Spokane area experienced one of the worst natural disasters in recent history. The windstorm killed 2 people and knocked out power to over 180,000 homes for up to 9 days. Fire Chief Bobby Williams has much more on how the department responded to this unprecedented incident.
I want to update you on the windstorm that you are undoubtedly experiencing at your house. Winds are actually going to continue to increase as we get into the late afternoon, and a high wind warning is in effect for the region until midnight tonight with up to 70-mile-per-hour winds. Damaging winds. We're already getting reports of 61, 67-mile-per-hour winds.
November 17th is a day we won't forget soon. Best of our knowledge, the busiest day in the Spokane Fire Department's history as it relates to incident responses and requests for services. Likewise, since we dispatch for all agencies in Spokane County, it was also the busiest day for our dispatch center. The Combined Communications Center dispatches for all agencies in the county. And that day we had dispatched over 600 calls for service.
There's another tree right now laying on top of this house. We don't know how much damage there is to it. I can tell you that power seems to be out everywhere west of Division. Division seems to be
extremely busy right day. Taxed our resources. The troops did a fantastic job. The communications specialists did an incredible job for all that they had going on. While they answered and dispatched about 600 calls, they took many more phone calls that came in, and the 911 operators did a great job too. They probably that day answered between 2,000 and 3,000 calls between 1 p.m. and 10 p.m. in the evening, and many of those we were not able to dispatch to just because we had to set priorities. It was very much like a mass casualty incident in which you have to triage calls, and we only dispatched personnel to calls that were life-threatening in nature, that involved a structure on fire, that involved possibility of people being trapped, those critical kinds of calls, because the system and the demand was so great, the callers coming in.
The National Weather Service tracked the storm 3 days out.
The computer models that we use to forecast have been very consistent in the strength and the magnitude of this event.
Hopefully we'll get their information.
This morning, multiple agencies gathered to prepare for the worst. The Department of Emergency Management organizing the discussion.
Credit to the Weather Service. The Weather Service did a fabulous job of giving pre-warning that this storm. They were saying things like storm of historic proportion. We requested of our Department of Emergency Management to activate our emergency coordination center so that we could be prepared. And we actually that day, the morning of the storm, we had a meeting and representatives of different agencies came together. We talked about what potentially was going to happen. The Weather Service gave us a briefing. They talked about the storms, when those storms would hit. We made a recommendation to the mayor. And the mayor heeded that to let employees go home early that day because all of the indication we were getting is the storm was going to get hit and about at the travel time of people to be going home, and the more people we could get off the street that could be impacted the storm, we felt the better we would be. I mean, who would have ever expected that we would see the devastation that we had across Spokane County? Most of it is, I think, Avista said, is ground zero was the city of Spokane, specifically in zip code 99203. So we had personnel responding to all kinds of calls. Tragically, they had to go and deal with the victim in which the tree fell on. Tragically, they had to go to many homes that had trees through them, cars that were crushed. They told us about some experiences in which there were virtually little room for people to have survived in a vehicle, in which they did survive, just by the grace of God. When you lose power for over 200,000 of the residents across the county and have the destruction that we had, then it requires a lot of follow-up. So not only did we work as a community to put up shelters in place throughout the area of devastation in the city and out in the valley, we actually went out and started doing welfare checks on specific residences within our community. And then as the event went on longer and we knew that there were going to be people, more and more people without power, our concern was, you know, how are they doing? How are they holding up? So we started as a city focusing on doing door-to-door checks to make sure that those that were infirmed or those that may not have the resources that other people do. We checked on areas, we did door-to-door, we put together canvassing. Members of our Recruit Academy went out and did door-to-door knocking, as well as other city employees, Vista volunteers and working. So it was a community effort really to go out and check on our neighbors. And I think it gave you pride in being a part not only of emergency services, but also being a part of the city organizational structure, the emergency operations group, the overall community effort that was put together both on the public sector and the private sector to really meet the needs of our community in one of the most critical times in our history's community.
This October, the Spokane Fire Department Hazmat team trained over 20 new personnel to the Hazmat specialist level in an intensive 3-week course. The new Hazmat team members will allow the department to better respond to chemical, biological, and radiological emergencies across the region. Lieutenant DJ Hill has more.
Prevailing winds carrying vapors north toward an empty field. So once you get the leak stopped, let's open it up and allow the vapors to dissipate.
We just held a full technical and specialist hazmat class with 22 students, which increases our staffing by about 33% across the board. We're in the process of adding an additional station to the team. Currently the team consists of the personnel from Station 1 and Station 9. We're adding Station 7 on East Sprague on the east side of the city, just because it's kind of co-located with the other stations.
We're sending you with some Visqueen, so if we need to contain a spill from the leaking drums, we can work on that.
By having additional people on duty that are trained, it reduces our time necessary to actually make an entry to start the stabilization process of the incident. We currently have to have 11 people to make an entry. The staffing levels between Station 1 and Station 9 just weren't there, so we had to add that extra station in order for us to shorten that length of time to where we can make an entry. There's several different levels of hazmat training within the fire service. There's the awareness level, the operations level. That's what every firefighter gets, and that's required by state law, the operations level. So every firefighter in the city of Spokane, actually in the state of Washington, regardless if they're paid or volunteer, have to be an operations level person. That gives them the ability to recognize, identify, and take defensive measures where they're not actually entering a hazardous atmosphere. The technician and specialist level are well above that. We have advanced training in plugging, patching, diking, identification of products through use of monitors, through spectrometry, chemistry. So we're able to actually go in and stabilize the incident, and that's our ultimate goal is incident stabilization. There's certain things that we have to comply with before we make an entry, and that takes people, and it takes training, it takes equipment. It's manpower intensive.
The engine 4 got called. Somebody on the first floor apartment has a complaint of an odor. Odor smells like nail polish.
I had 22 people go through the class, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. The first couple weeks were intensive classroom, learning about the various laws of the federal government, the state government, learning about procedure, policy, how we run an incident, followed by 2 weeks of intensive hands-on training every day in level A, level B suits, in our bunker gear, covering rail emergencies, over-the-road emergencies, trucks, etc., fixed facility, chemical plants, things of that nature, learning all the different techniques that we use to ultimately stop leaks or handle spills.
Yes, the leak in that drum has been stopped.
Hector 1 ETL, copy.
Commander from Hazmat, did you happen to see what the flag rating was on that?
We had a final exam. Fairchild Air Force Base was kind enough to let us use their facility. It was a major incident, multiple victims, some very nasty chemicals, and it was the opportunity for the students to put together everything that they learned in the 3 weeks of class, just like they would on a normal incident, real time.
Attention, anyone on the bus. If you can hear me, move towards the sound of my voice.
My job as an instructor is to induce stress. I think we did that, and it was very interesting to see the students feel that stress. It became very real for them. We try to use things like colored smoke, victims, stuff like that to induce that stress, and that's really what we're looking for, because the incidents are very stressful. We're in the process currently of combining the resources of Fairchild Air Force Base, certainly the fire districts and municipal fire departments in Spokane County, as well as the fire district in North Idaho, Kootenai County Fire and Rescue. It's been identified that due to the manpower intensive nature of Hazmat, we're going to be far better off if we work together. Fairchild, Kootenai County, they're bringing expertise to the table to go along with ours, along with that manpower piece, and more importantly, or not more importantly, but certainly as important, equipment. Hazardous materials equipment, period, is extremely expensive. Through the cooperative efforts of the three departments, we're able to spread that expense out and reduce the duplication of effort.
This fall, the Spokane Fire Department opened up its newest residential fire station. Station 5 is in the Eagle Ridge, Qualshin neighborhood. As part of the renovation to the home, the department had to install a residential fire sprinkler system. Fire Protection Engineer Dave Kokot has much more on the benefits of a home fire sprinkler system.
Hi, I'm Dave Kokot. I'm the Fire Protection Engineer with Spokane Fire Department, and today I'm at the new Fire Station 5. And Fire Station 5 is actually a house, part of the Eagle Ridge development, and we're converting it over temporarily to a fire station until we were able to build our new one. One of the requirements we had is coming into this building is to put fire sprinklers into it. And although fire sprinklers are not very popular for the construction industry, it's something as a demonstration here of being able to show how good it looked and how well it's installed. It actually is a very good installation, a very simple installation for putting sprinklers into a house. And the purpose of this is once we're done with the station and we can move into our new one, we're going to be moving this back into being a single-family residence again. So somebody's going to have a fire sprinkler system in their home. If you have a fire in this house, say we had a fire happening tonight and people had to leave the house, sprinkler would activate, put out the fire, people would be able to move right back into that house once the fire's been put out, the water's been cleaned up, they could stay here. Where you have a fire in a house that doesn't have fire sprinklers, they're probably not going to be moving back into the house for a while. That's a big thing. Plus you don't lose your possessions. You basically be able to save the things that are important to you. The biggest one that I deal with all the time is we call it the Hollywood sprinkler situation. And people say, well, I don't want sprinklers in my house because this one's going to go off and that one and that one and that one. All the heads are going to go off at one time because that's what it does in the movies. And that's anything farther from the truth, we can definitely, it's not even close. The sprinklers actually have a thermal element within these, and only those heads that are exposed to that temperature are going to actually operate. So if we had a fire in this room, just this one head, there's only one head serving this living room here, that's the only head that's going to activate in a fire situation. Actually, there was some discussion on the press recently about townhouse fire sprinklers, and it was $15,000 to install a sprinkler system for a 1,500 square foot townhouse. And we just have never seen that. Within the city of Spokane, we're seeing new installations for sprinklers around $1.20 to $1.40 a square foot. For an existing home, it's usually about $3 a square foot. It's still not that bad. And if you start comparing the costs of a house, it's actually cheaper than you're going to be putting granite countertops or your cabinets going in the house. It's going to be cheaper and it's going to save your house. It's something that's important. Another misconception of things as well is that basically the concern is, well, why do I need sprinklers in here because I've got smoke detectors in my house? Well, one of the concerns that we've seen over time is it's not the fire that's going to kill people, it's going to be the smoke. And if you have something that smoke detector isn't functioning properly or even hearing it and you're in a deep enough sleep, you may not wake up from that. And if you don't wake up and it gets to be enough smoke, you will probably never wake up. So sprinklers will protect with that. Another one is that they're going to, actually this is a very strange one to me, is that it's going to freeze. Well, it's already in your house, it's already the same type of piping, it's the same type of insulation as the plumbing in the house. So I actually had a comment from somebody at one of the hearings I was at for council, and they were saying, well, they don't want the water from the sprinklers mixing with the water in their domestic water because it would freeze the water faster. And it's all coming from the same place, it's all the same water. So the amount of freezing for this is just the concern about this is it could occur just as easily as a domestic water system. Talked a little about it earlier, is if you have a fire, you're going to be probably moving back into the house with a sprinkler system right away. If the fire department does come in and we like using water, we'll probably use 10 to 20 times more water than a fire sprinkler is going to be. And the damage is going to be more widespread because we have to get through the house to be able to get to where the source of the fire could be. So there's definitely a much more higher possibility of higher damage without having sprinklers. There's some national studies being done on construction of homes, and there was a very notable test that basically did a side-by-side burn of new construction, and they did another one of, basically we call it this older style of construction. They actually got on eBay and bought old furniture, they got old art carpet, even did the walls in certain finishes in a certain way. The flashover, which is when all the contents in the room explode in flame at one time, that's called flashover. The flashover in a normal constructed home similar to this would be about 3.5 minutes. When they did the test for what they call the legacy homes, the old construction homes, it was almost 10 times longer. They thought it'd be 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and they got to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Finally, at just over 30 minutes, the room went to flashover. So it was quite illuminating even for us as for the fire service to realize that, okay, those older homes can last quite a bit longer. Now it's the contents, of course, which are the biggest concerns. One of the other things that we're also seeing, and I haven't been in the basement of our new station yet to see whether it has it, but is lightweight construction. Now they can start getting lightweight beams or actually laminated beams that are put together. And what can happen on a floor like this is you could have a fire in the basement, and basically that heat will delaminate the beam, and all you have is the top stringer of the beam holding all the plywood up. So as you walk into this room, it looks no different than it would be if the beam was there or not there, until you step on it and you fall through into the basement. And that actually is becoming a problem for a lot of fire services. Going to new homes, we're starting to see more injuries and deaths of firefighters responding to new homes.
This Valentine's Day marks the 2-year anniversary of the launch of PulsePoint in the Spokane area. PulsePoint is a free app, and it takes advantage of citizen responders who are trained in CPR and also willing to assist in the event of an emergency. Manager of Integrated EMS Services, Mike Lopez, has more.
PulsePoint is an application that an app that people can download onto their personal cell phones. It basically provides an opportunity for an individual who does download the app to be alerted if a case of sudden cardiac arrest occurs in an area nearby them. The whole essence of that is to more rapidly get life-saving care to a patient who may be suffering from sudden cardiac arrest. Well, bystander CPR, in the chain of survival, if you will, the first link in the chain of survival from sudden cardiac arrest is layperson CPR. If somebody can get on scene and initiate CPR very rapidly soon after the sudden cardiac arrest occurs, the chances of that person who suffered the cardiac arrest surviving becomes much greater. And again, PulsePoint plays right into that by getting the layperson on scene rapidly and initiating CPR, which then enhances the chances of survival. Yeah, one of the things that we're doing as a community, as an EMS and trauma care system, is to look at opportunities to improve the percentage of layperson CPR. Strategies like making sure that the dispatchers, when they field, or the communication specialists, when they field the call for help, once they realize that CPR is required, that they encourage and do everything they can to make sure that the caller is initiating CPR. On a community-wide basis, we're doing layperson CPR training.
Notification. Swiping the message will display a live map showing your location, the reported address of the cardiac arrest victim, and any nearby AEDs. This is a dynamic map view that will continue to update your location as you move towards the victim or AED.
The PulsePoint app is actually able to discern the closest few people who have the PulsePoint app to that exact incident. The notification happens very quickly, within seconds of the actual dispatch from the combined communication centers to the firefighters who are responding. So it's nearly simultaneous. I think the main thing is just encouraging as many people as possible to get out and learn CPR. It doesn't take a 4-hour course any longer. You can usually do it in an hour to an hour and a half. Be aware of where AEDs are located in your business or in your school. And finally, really focus on downloading the PulsePoint app, because that's really going to have a major impact on cardiac arrest in our community.
That's all for this edition of Second Alarm. If you have any questions or comments, please drop us a line at fire@SpokaneFire.org. Thanks and have a safe day.